The sky above Korea 4 burned orange, tinged with the hue of a sunset that never fully settled. Even on the most remote worlds, the lights of trade fleets flickered in the horizon like distant stars. Gale stood on the observation deck of Starform 6, gazing down at the planet below. The hum of the orbital station's engines was barely perceptible through the thick, polished glass, an endless reminder that even here, suspended between worlds, the machinery never truly slept. "Looks peaceful," said Arlen, his second-in-command, strolling up beside him. The lines of her uniform were crisp, her posture unnaturally relaxed. "Because it is," Gale replied, not taking his eyes off the planet below. "Nothing to see down there. Just another place too far along to intervene and too primitive to exploit. Let the locals bicker over rocks." Gale allowed himself a brief sigh. Korea 4, with its modest civilization and pre-warp economy, wasn't worth more than a glance in their ledger. The people below had no idea that orbital stations like Starform 6 watched over them, and even if they did, they were too insignificant to matter. But the formers were still here. That's what the company did. They built fleets, stockpiled enough firepower to level entire systems, and established orbital and deep space industries that stretched across the galaxy. Gale's shipyards assembled vessels that others would use, as always, in some costly little war they couldn't afford. "New order came in," Arlen continued, her tone clipped. "One of the outer systems. Think they're nervous again. Talk about arming up after they saw our fleet pass by a few cycles ago." Gale's lips twitched into a smile. That happened more often than he cared to count. A quick show of muscle, an accidental parade of their ships, made half the galaxy scramble to rearm, pouring their limited resources into new weapons to protect themselves from, well, from nothing. "They'll buy the export versions, I'm guessing?" "Of course. Slightly worse specs, naturally. Wouldn't want anyone getting any ideas." Gale turned to face her, finally breaking his gaze from the placid surface below. "And they'll pay more for it, too. Always do." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. No one wanted to be the weaker neighbor, so they all fed into the machine. The fleets, the arms, the endless industries that kept this post-scarcity economy running without even trying. No one was ever forced. They all just stumbled into the game and never knew how to leave. A gentle chime sounded overhead, and Gale's attention shifted. "What's this?" "Humanitarian dispatch. Routine." Arlen checked the feed on her wrist. "The Rigel cluster. Supply shortages. We're sending a full convoy." Gale nodded, unsurprised. "We'll call it training, right?" Arlen smiled slightly. "That's the spirit. Doesn't even cut into our production. The drones handle most of it." The drone ships. Thousands of them. Each capable of executing supply drops, or if someone ever flipped the switch, going to war. Of course, that was never the plan. Not officially. They'd always maintained that the drones were just tools of industry. Logistics workhorses, nothing more. But Gale had seen the contingency protocols, the simulation scenarios that hinted at something darker. "You think about it?" Arlen asked, her voice suddenly quieter. "The drones, I mean." "No," Gale replied too quickly. "And neither should you." A silence passed between them, the kind that didn't need to be filled. They both knew the truth, though no one said it aloud. These operations, the humanitarian runs, the endless arms trade, it all kept the galaxy moving. It was a system so efficient, so airtight, that they had become the sole architects of galactic commerce. Entire empires depended on them, all by accident. "We're not the villains, you know," Arlen said as though reading his mind. "Didn't say we were. We're keeping the peace." Gale nodded, though he wasn't sure if he believed it. Peace, in his experience, was just a matter of who held the biggest stick. And right now, they had the largest in the galaxy. But how long would that last? "We've got a new contract to prepare," Gale said after a long pause. "Let's make sure we don't fall behind." Arlen gave a short nod and turned to leave, her footsteps echoing through the observation deck. Gale remained behind, watching the endless flow of ships below, each one a cog in the vast, inevitable empire they had built. It wasn't greed that drove it. Not really. The machine simply ran because it had to, because no one knew how to stop it. And maybe, just maybe, it was better that way. As the last of the sunlight slipped behind Korea 4's horizon, Gale turned away from the window, heading toward the heart of the station. There were contracts to fulfill, fleets to expand, and another species somewhere in the stars that would soon convince themselves they needed more weapons, more ships, more of everything. It was the easiest job in the galaxy, and it was never going to end.